Hi everyone, Cindy Porter here with you again today with another video for Art and Soul Studio. Today I'm going to share with you how I painted this parrot using Impasto to create a 3D effect. I began in my Expressit A5 journal, mixed media journal, using some of the Art Alchemy Impasto paints. I'm using pumpkin and lemon peel at the moment to paint my background with a little water to make them spread more easily. The Impasto paints are quite thick, which is what allows them to give the 3D effects I am going to achieve shortly in the video. I'm just sketching out a rough sketch here of my parrot just before I begin applying some of the Impasto paint in a 3D manner. So to get nice 3D feathers, I have chosen to use a palette knife to apply the Impasto paint, and just applying it much thicker than you would with a paintbrush and dragging it along to form feather shapes. The paint, because it is so thick, stays raised and gives you these wonderful 3D effects. I'm just finishing up with the blue feathers here, just making sure I've got enough Impasto paint on for all of the feathers, and just correcting the shape slightly. I then move on to the lemon peel. The blue is called Cobalt. The lemon peel Impasto paint from Art Alchemy, and I use the same technique, applying it with the palette knife to create feather-like shapes. They, once dry, leaves lovely texture on your page, so it gives this really very dimensional effect. I'm now using some poppy red to make some further feathers. Again, using that palette knife so that I keep that nice thick structured application of the Impasto paint. For the head, I've chosen to actually use a paintbrush, so it is much thinner and doesn't have the same dimension that the other feathers on the parrot actually have because of the application with the palette knife. I'm using a fan brush here to give a little texture to the head by tapping it on. Tapping the fan brush on gives a small amount of texture in the Impasto paint. Painting in some details for the eyes around and part of the beak using the Snow White Impasto paint, and now using the pitch black to finish off the other portion of the beak of the parrot. It's quite thick to paint on, so I found you need to keep your brush wet at all times, otherwise you'll just get blobs of paint rather than painting smoothly. Next, it's time to start adding some shadows to give the parrot feathers more dimension. So I am using a mixture of the pitch black and the cobalt to highlight and give underneath shading to the feathers. This just makes everything look more realistic and real life rather than quite a flat piece despite the texture. Now I am using the lemon peel to add highlight colours as well to the feathers. The more dimension you can make your piece look by adding both shadows and highlights, the more realistic your piece will look once it's finished. So again, adding highlights and shadows to all of the feathers, including those around the beak and the head just makes the image that you're trying to create more realistic. So giving some details here to the feathers around the head and especially around the eye as well, just adds extra dimension. Adding a few more shadows to those feathers just makes them help pop off the page. I used a little bottle green in the Impasto paint to give the eye a bit more colour, and I mixed a little bit of the pitch black with the snow white to do some very faint lines in the white section around the eye and add a few details to the beak as well. Again here now I'm just adding more and more little highlights and shadows to the feathered section of the head, just to bring it to life that bit more. The more layers you use, the better your finished piece will look. And there it is. I hope you enjoyed this brief tutorial, and maybe you'll give the 3D effect of Impasto paint a go. Very easy to use. Thank you very much for joining me. Till next time, bye for now.